I don't know about you, but I'm still trying to recover from the year of new game releases that was 2023. As of now, 2024 doesn't seem to be nearly as crazy, but like any year, there are hopefully some awesome games to look forward to. This video is a list of the most anticipated games expected to come out within the next 12 months, somewhat ranked by hype levels. As per usual, we still don't have a complete picture of what's to come, and so this list will have an emphasis on games we know or at least can be confident will release sometime in the next year. A few notable omissions include Wolverine and Fable, which both seem far along yet still far away. Dragon Ball Sparking Zero and Avowed are both highly anticipated games that seem feasibly close, but I don't think we've seen enough to know for sure. But that's enough rambling, let's start with number 11. Yes, there are 11 games instead of 10, and that's because Tales of Kenzera Zao looked compelling enough to me I couldn't help but include it on this list. Tales of Kenzera is a EA original game developed by the unknown Surgent Studios. The studio's founder, Abu Bakr Salim, used his personal experience of losing his father as inspiration when crafting this title. From what we've seen, there are a lot of mystical elements that lends nicely to a spiritual journey of overcoming loss. So far from what we've seen, there's a lot to like in this 2.5D action platformer. Immediately, the pace of action and platforming stands out. Also exciting is the seemingly wide array of elemental abilities and enemy types. So far, Tales of Kenzera Zao seems to have a lot going for it. Even though the Switch's successor appears to be just around the corner, Nintendo is still putting out great games. Princess Peach Showtime may not immediately stand out to many gamers, but the more I look into this title, the more reason I find to be excited. Obviously the focus here is Peach, but the game mechanics on display look intriguing. The setting of play gives all sorts of room to genre variety and mixing. Immediately I couldn't help but draw comparisons to It Takes Two in all the best sorts of ways. One moment Peach is a detective, then a baker, and even a kung fu expert. Like any other game that implements a variety of different concepts, I hope each system is finely tuned, but that is Nintendo's bread and butter. Is Princess Peach Showtime a game that interests you? Going from princess to prince, we have our second action-adventure platformer, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. Being part of a series known for some of the OG platformers, Prince of Persia and the Lost Crown has a lot of excitement and expectations surrounding it. With it being less than a month away, there's also a ton of coverage to help inform you if it's a game for you. All this transparency from Ubisoft is generally a great sign of confidence in the title's quality. Unlike many of the other games in the genre, this Prince of Persia is going to be meaty. The game's length is expected to be around 20 hours, with combat being deep and challenging. From what we know, combat emphasizes the importance of offense and defense, which is a plus for a player like me. We'll have to wait until we have the game in our hands, but as of now I think it's safe to say this isn't just going to be a 6-hour linear hack and slasher. In a world where every game seemingly has a roguelike mode, one of the gods has returned. Hades 2 looks to expand upon much of what made the first game so critically beloved. This time around, gamers get to help Melinoe take down Kronos, who I believe would be considered her grandfather. Like the previous title, I think it's safe to assume there will be a ton of exposition in between each of your runs. Unlike many games in the subgenre, Hades has a greater emphasis on giving players context and even some motivation with its characters and world building. Having a shallow understanding of Greek mythology myself, I find the relationships to be the most interesting part of Hades. It will be fun to see how Melinoe differs from Zagreus in both personality and gameplay. Compared to 2023, 24 seems to be much lighter on survival horror games. After several delays, Stalker 2: Heart of Chernobyl seems to be just the game for fans of the genre. Compared to a completely fictional setting, Chernobyl carries an extra layer of creepiness. Of course, it's worth noting the developers at GSC Game World are based out of Ukraine and have been affected by the invasion of Russia, with several even going into combat. I'm not sure how you pivot from something as serious and real as that, but hopefully working on this game can serve as a positive distraction for the developers during this dark time. The game itself truly does look like a next-gen, or I guess now a current-gen exclusive. Speaking of exclusive, this title is exclusive to the Xbox platform, so you can expect to find it on Game Pass day one. Black Myth Wukong has had a lot of hype around it for a while now. Made by the Chinese studio Game Science, Black Myth Wukong appears to be loosely based on Journey to the West with some Souls-like elements. From an entirely outsider perspective, this title has some similarities to Lies of P in that both games are FromSoft inspired, within universes of twisted interpretations of a classic tale. From what we've seen, there is hopefully a deep selection of different enemy types. Like many good Souls-likes, some of the main hallmarks are here, like disgusting looking enemies, the equivalent of a bonfire, an emphasis on dodging, and a good old health flask. Of course, there are some unique mechanics we need to learn more about, like stopping time. I'm not big into Souls-like games, but this title does look interesting. With all the excitement around this game, I did feel like I had to put it on the list, but I also think it's worth mentioning that the studio Game Science has some less than flattering reports coming out about their workplace culture, specifically towards women. Below I've attached an article if you want to check it out. Racing and fighting games are both genres I suck at, but enjoy. This last year, both Street Fighter 6 and Mortal Kombat 1 were my jam, but I might just be the most excited for Tekken 8. Tekken is the fighting series I've had the most experience with, while also preferring the extra layer of lateral movement. With almost a decade-long gap from the last entry, Tekken 8 has some pressure to perform. Visually, Tekken 8 looks mighty impressive, from character models to animations to cinematics. The new gameplay feature is the heat mechanic, which seemingly encourages and rewards a more aggressive style. Fighting games are so purposeful and meticulous in their balance, and so it'll be interesting to see how big and small changes mix up the experience. The story mode is reported to be longer and more involved, while the roster has 3 new additions. If you're interested in Tekken 8, there is a demo out now, so feel free to check that out if you haven't already. HELLBLADE Senua's Sacrifice came out back in 2017 to largely positive critical and consumer reception. Fast forward to today, and Senua's Saga HELLBLADE 2 is expected to come out sometime in 2024. With several delays pushing this title back years, one can hope this is a sign of polish over a troubled development, not to say the two can overlap. From what is known, HELLBLADE 2 is expected to be much longer than the first title that could have easily been beaten in less than 10 hours. There are a few questions I'm sure many fans are asking themselves. How does the sequel add to the weighty yet simple feel of combat? In what ways will the player continue to explore a perspective with psychosis? Hopefully we don't have to wait too long to find out. Star Wars Outlaws made quite the splash when it was revealed, but to be honest, I'm not entirely sure what I'm looking at. This game almost seems a little too good to be true, so I'm curious to see more of it. I guess I would say I'm interested to see where are all the seams or the limits of this title. Visually, the game looks incredible. The gameplay looks like a blend of Uncharted and Red Dead Redemption, which is seemingly a great choice for a story and setting that has a lot of Western and over-the-top action influences. We still don't know much about the story or the characters, but the 10-minute reveal trailer shows a lot in terms of gameplay and tone. There are multiple planets to visit, and so it will be interesting to see exactly how many we're going to be going through, as well as how free each location is. Nonetheless, what we have seen is definitely impressive. Rise of the Ronin appears to be one of Team Ninja's most ambitious projects to date. Rise of the Ronin is an open-world action RPG taking place during the end of the Shogunate, somewhat similar to the Death of the Wild West, but for Japan. Being a game with samurais and ninjas, you can expect combat to be nothing less than epic. Taking place during the late 19th century, there's an emphasis on explosive weapons like guns, which will be an interesting pairing for a katana. Of course, the development team is known for challenging combat, but beyond just that, being an open world, there also seems to have been a lot of work put into traversal. From what we've seen, you can glide and grapple hook your way around Edo. For me, I'm a simple guy. If the combat clicks and the traversal's dynamic, I'm a happy gamer. What are your thoughts on Rise of the Ronin? Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is easily the game with the most hype heading into 2024. Being part 2 of the reimagined remake of FF7, it'll be interesting to see how this title is similar yet different to both the original game and part 1. Also interesting, it sounds like this is part 2 of 3. Personally, I've never played the original FF7 or part 1 of the remake, so I'm looking at this from the outside and I'm genuinely curious. It's kind of crazy when you think of it. A PS1 game is being remade into such a large, overarching story it will take 3 games over multiple console generations to complete. I might just have to give part 1 a try earlier in the year, and then maybe play Rebirth if I like it. This definitely seems like a bigger and better kind of sequel, so hopefully all of you enjoy it. So those were the 11 picks that made the most sense to me. A couple of titles mentioned may get delayed out of the year, while I'm sure there are a few other great games yet to be announced, which is why I usually make a part 2 of anticipated releases sometime in the summer. Even though 2024 doesn't seem as dense as 23, there's still a lot to keep your eye out for. What's your most anticipated title? As always, I appreciate you for watching, and until next time, see ya.